Saw dudes, I just farmed my butt off for the Hierarchy of Needs bow from Spire of the Watcher and unlocked the Catalyst. I really like the loop of the weapon, even though many have stated that it is a side grade or even downgrade to Ticuu's Divination. I have been wanting to make another Solar Titan build that can utilize longer range, since many builds have already utilized Throwing Hammer, Syntheseps, and Tractor Cannon combo. For today's build, I chose to use the recently reworked Path of Running Steps, which provides a stacking damage bonus to solar weapon damage after kills, capping at 25%. This bonus does not stack with Radiant, but is useful for ad clear and even some boss damage. This build aims to provide long range damage and ad clear, but can still allow for some up close hammer action when the needs arise. Let's get started. The Supra I chose to use for this build was Hammer of Soul. Since we are trying to apply damage from long range, I prefer this Super. Burning Maul's heavy attack sends out a cyclone that applies damage over time though, so the choice is up to you. I chose to use Rally Barricade as a class ability. While we could use the full cover of Towering Barricade, Rally Barricade lets us shoot over it and provides bonuses to all of our weapons. The melee ability of choice for this build was Throwing Hammer. It's a spammy ability but does crazy amounts of damage for how easy it is to use. For the grenade, I opted for Thermite Grenade for the better lockdown and the ability to ignite tankier enemies much more easily. Regarding the aspects, I used Roaring Flames and Sol Invictus. Roaring Flames grants a stacking damage buff to our solar abilities in Super, with the third and final stack granting us a 73% damage buff. This is great for our Thermite Grenades and Throwing Hammer, and lets them scale without the need for exotic synergies. Sol Invictus creates sunspots upon killing scorched enemies or killing enemies with abilities. These sunspots grant us restoration and a 100% regen buff to our melee and grenade energy. For the fragments, I went with Ember of Empyrean, Ashes, Blistering, and Torches. Empyrean extends the effects of Restoration and Radiant by 4 seconds on a solar kill. Ashes increases the amount of Scorch stacks that we apply by 50%. Blistering grants grenade energy upon killing enemies with ignitions. And finally, Ember of Torches grants us and nearby allies Radiant for 8 seconds when striking an enemy with a powered melee attack. Let's cover the armor. For the helmet, I used Harmonic Siphon, Ashes to Assets, and Special Ammo Finder. Special Ammo Finder can be switched to Heavy Ammo Finder if need be. On the arms, I slotted Grenade Kickstart, Bolstering Detonation, and Impact Induction. On the chunky chest plate, I equipped Sniper Damage Resist and 2 variable resistance mods. Switch the resistance mods depending on the activity for more survivability. With the Path of Burning Steps, I used Recuperation, Innervation, and Stasis Scavenger. And on the mark was Bomber, Outreach, and Reaper. This build will benefit from 100 resilience since it will lower our Rally Barricade cooldown. I would completely ignore mobility and intellect and go for discipline and strength. Now let's move on and cover the weapon loadout section. Weapon loadout 1 is the turret build and the usual anti-champion setup. The kinetic slot is taken up by the Resonant Stasis Fusion Rifle, Deliverance, or Riptide. In the energy slot was the Hierarchy of Needs, and in the heavy slot I used Cold Comfort. I don't know how many times I have to say this, but Deliverance is our gateway to demolishing all of the champions in the game due to Chill Clip. Hierarchy of Needs is our ad clear and primary DPS machine. Once we find a nice spot, we sit our crayon eating butts down and place a guidance ring for the additional seekers that spawn after firing arrows. Cold Comfort is a great rocket launcher and goes well with a teammate that runs Galahorn. Weapon Loadout 2 goes all in on the Sniper Fantasy. Instead of Deliverance in the kinetic slot, I use the Supremacy Sniper Rifle. Hierarchy of Needs continues to stay in the energy slot, however, in the heavy slot we are using Apex Predator. The Supremacy has great ammo conservation and reserves due to the combo of rewind rounds and 4 times the charm. Apex Predator with Reconstruction and Bait and Switch makes for the great DPS option in a damage rotation. When we consider a damage phase, we can fire Hierarchy of Needs once, then Supremacy, then fire off 2 rockets from Apex Predator. After that, we mag dump Supremacy and continue the cycle for massive numbers. Now let me outline the game loop for you guys. Hierarchy of Needs only requires us to hit precision shots at the minimum to build up a charge for a guidance ring. When we are ready to set one up, fire the weapon fully drawn from hipfire and unleash hell on the enemy. During this time, you can set up a Rally Barricade for more cover and throw grenades at enemies. I would recommend throwing Thermite Grenades at beefier enemies and spawn points so you can thin the herd. Remember, this build does not really rely on abilities and is meant to make our weapons shine. That being said, play from the back, but don't be afraid to move into enemy lines with your Throwing Hammer and Super. I'm really sorry for the late upload. OBS was giving me some issues and I really wanted to get Hierarchy of Needs. I really love this bow and want to make a full review of it down the line. However, some other projects will need to take precedence. Thank you for watching and happy farming.